some of the ranks and the armour of the men in front of you before we do some weapons training, then some drill formations, and then fire the artillery pieces. Roman legion in the time of the armour equipment you see in front of you, which is the second half of the 1st century AD, the Roman legion consisted of 5,300 men. The private soldier of the legion is a legionary. He serves in the Roman army for a period of 25 years, and during that year is not allowed to make a legal marriage, and should he be married when he enlisted, the actual form of enlistment was an automatic form of divorce. If we take a closer look at the armour and equipment of a legionary soldier, you'll see first of all these large Imperial Gallic helmets. We could have some legionaries down in this area, please. Large Imperial Gallic helmets give a great deal of protection to their heads, with a large cheekpiece and a large neck guard in the rear of the helmet. A reinforcement in the front of the helmet would help withstand sword blows. They wear a body armour called larga segmentata, which simply means it's made of segments of metal, which have been riveted to leather straps internally, and this makes the armour flexible and easy for the soldier to move about inside. The weight of one of these cuirasses is about 22 pounds or 10 kilos. Around the bottom plates of the armour they wear a military belt, and the front of the belt is an apron for the protection of lower stomach and private parts, although we find that the protection is more psychological than practical. In fact, if you're running, it can be a damn nuisance. Point of view of protection, they carry a large scutum or shield, which is made of laminated wood, today a process we would call plywood, with thin layers of wood with the grains going in different directions, and the shield is then covered in linen or leather, and the design painted directly onto the shield. A large iron boss in the centre protects a single hand grip. When we come to the legionaries' weapons, first of all there's a 7-foot long pilum or javelin. This weapon was obviously thrown at the enemy, and when you threw it, you obviously hoped that it would penetrate a man and kill him. If it didn't, if it hit the ground or hit an enemy shield, the top part, being very thin, would bend and mean that the enemy did not have an effective weapon to throw back again. When they thrown the javelins, they would start with their short stabbing and thrusting swords, a sword called a gladius, and stab for the soft parts of the body in particular, particularly into the lower stomach where you don't get mixed up with the rib cage. And finally on the left side, the legionary carries a short pugi or a dagger. To every century of 80 men, there was 80 men in the century at this time, there would be various officers and standard bearers, and we first of all look at the signifer, who carries the signum or standard, which is a rallying point for his century of 80 men. You can see that all standard bearers and horn players wear animal skins over their helmets. In this case, you can see it's a European brown bear. He's equipped with a scale armour called larga squamata, and one of his duties is to look after the savings of the men within his century of 80 men. He's followed by the horn player, who carries this large circular horn called a cornu, which is used to relay commands in battle and on the march. As I've said, he once again wears an animal skin. You can see this is a wolf skin, and as you know, the wolves were very numerous in Europe at this time. He's followed by a gentleman called a vexillarius, who carries a vexilla flag that shows the legion that the party has come from, and you can see that this legion is the 20th Legion, and the emblem of that legion is a wild boar. Once again, the animal skin over the helmet and a mail shirt. The gentleman at the back of the column with the black and white crest is the second in command to the centurion. He's called an optio. His badges of rank or his crest, obviously. His staff, he carries a wax tablet in a satchel which contain the orders of the day and the password. So he's the second in command of a century. The century was commanded by a centurion who would wear equipment such as mine. You can see I'm the only one who wears greaves on his legs, a leather arming doublet under a short mail shirt. The cloak is a badge of rank on the left shoulder, A large transverse crest, you can see the crest goes across the helmet, not from front to back. And he will always carry at all times a vine stick, which is part of his badge of office, but was also used on the men for casual corporal punishment, but unfortunately you do begin to like it after a while. We've been given military awards, you can see they're worn on the chest on the leather harness. At the rear of the column, we have some Roman auxiliary troops. These are non-Roman citizen soldiers. They serve in the Roman army for a period of 25 years. At the end of that 25 years, they gain Roman citizenship, which can be passed down to their families and their offspring. The auxiliary troops, as you see, have simple bronze helmets, mail shirts supporting their belts, which support their daggers and swords. They have a flat oval shield more suitable for skirmishing, and a stabbing spear rather than a throwing javelin. These men would have been the type of men who would have manned the forts you would have found on Hadrian's Wall and the small forts you find in Wales. They have an officer attached to them called an magnifer, who carries an image of the emperor. In this case, it's the image of the emperor is Vespasian. You can see Vespasian is carried on a pole, and this is the way the troops knew what the emperor looked like. Once again, as with all standard bearers, you can see he wears a wolf skin, a bear skin, an animal skin, and a mail shirt, and he obviously would be quite an important man. We're just going to briefly show you now some of the training that the legionaries would go through before we do our formations. So I'll hand you back to our Joe.
Executive! Orders his men to fall in. They will begin their exercise program. Roman legionaries were very highly trained. They were the elite of the Roman Empire. You consider that about 30 legions held the entire empire. That's pretty good going. The empire, of course, stretched from cold Britannia, that's us, in the north, down to Egypt, and their actual counterparts, Radius and Scutum. The idea is if you can handle a heavy shield, you can really make short work of an easy, lightweight combat shield. And the combat shield is a weapon in itself. It's not just defensive. You smack the enemy in the face and he's down sticking with a sword. So it's a weapon as well as defensive. Some of the soldiers are throwing double-weighted javelins at each other. Yeah? So when they go to throw their actual javelins, they can do so with confidence and go further. Marching around at the moment, the left-hand side of the display area, as you're looking up the hill, is legionary full marching pack. Got his pack over his shoulder, still carrying his shield, wouldn't have been very comfortable, but these men were very tough indeed. You'll notice surrounding the standards is an auxiliary guard, so in the case of a surprise attack, the legionaries would of course muster to their defence, but there would be an immediate guard on the imperial standards. One or two of the auxiliaries are also fighting with shields and javelins, because of course their main weapon is the spear rather than the sword. Although of course they're just as proficient with the sword. These troops were very good indeed. The auxiliaries were just as good as the highly paid and equipped legionaries, and indeed in one of the final battles against the Caledonians in Scotland, the auxiliaries did all the fighting and beat the Scots on their own, while the legionaries were sat there and had a picnic. The troops will now form up, and you'll get a bit of a better idea of the battle tactics. First of all, we've got to remember we're dealing with a very small body of men here. Imagine this magnified up and up and up, till we're talking about a full legion of 5,000 men. Try also imagining what it would be like being the Celts who haven't seen the Romans before. The first thing you've got to remember is the Celtic form of life, fighting, everything was entirely different. The Celts tended to fight in a disorganised, heroic manner, more interested in individual glory than actually beating the enemy. This put them at a very severe disadvantage when up against the equivalent of a tank. And as you see them advancing, you'll see what I mean. The Celts also tended to fight virtually naked. They didn't wear very much armour, and so coming up against a fully armoured Roman, they wouldn't last very long at all. Perhaps one of the greatest victories of the Roman legions in Britain was the crushing of the revolt by Boudicca, Queen Boadicea of the Iceni, who in AD 60 managed to raise a revolt and destroy the whole town of Colchester, massacring 50,000 people, going on to London and slaughtering the inhabitants there in an orgy of destruction. and so enraged was she by Roman rule. She took her army and marched north, barring their way the 14th Legion, Ermine, 5,000 men, against 100,000 British warriors. Beside the 14th, several battalions or cohorts, they were known, of the 20th Legion. Outnumbered over 10 to 1, they stood their ground. The British attacked, so confident of victory, they even put their wagons containing their women and children in a huge arc behind them to watch the show. The Romans stood their ground. They fought back. The Celts could make no impression on these troops. Then the Romans advanced, methodically, like a steel tank, rank upon rank upon rank. The result was complete slaughter. The Celts were routed, nearly 100,000 of them were killed. Many couldn't escape because they were pinned into their own wagons and frantically tried to get away from the oncoming legionaries. As you see the tactics now, you'll begin to understand that the Celts, the natives of these lands, were dealing with something completely alien, completely beyond their comprehension, and they had no ability to defeat them. Of course, we're looking at the early Roman army here. The Romans didn't look like this all the time. They were in Britain 400 years. It became a very prosperous province of the mighty Roman Empire. But as hyperinflation caught on, and Vandals, Goths, and the other Germanic tribes started to crumble away at the empire at the limits, the army fell apart. So late Romans look very different from this indeed. So we're looking at the Romans in their heyday, at the height of their power, in the 1st century AD. The column swings round, the auxiliaries behind, and now they'll break into line. Again, if you're a Celt, you'd be horrified by this. There's no way your army could do this. No way, because you wouldn't have any organisation at all. And suddenly, from a column, you're faced with a line. But not just any line, a two-deep line, where each soldier can cover his comrade, front and rear. The officers retire to the rear. The most terrible thing that could happen is your standards falling into the hands of the barbarians. In fact, there was this great disaster in Germany in 87 or 89, such a long time ago, I can't remember now, when 3 entire legions of heavy infantry like this tried to fight their way through a forest and were wiped out virtually to the last man by enormous numbers of Germanic tribesmen fighting on their home ground. 3 standards were lost. Greatest insult that could ever happen to Rome. The Romans got some of them back again, but they've lost 3 legions in the meantime. So you don't let your standards go to the enemy. And funnily enough, that stayed the same with every army ever since. Out comes the dreaded Gladius. Of course, Gladius leads to the word gladiator. So when you see gladiators on the telly, that refers to the sword they use. First, the skirmishers, the auxiliaries, nimble, lightly armed skirmishers with their stabbing hasta. As I said before, they were quite capable of beating the enemy all by themselves, but obviously this is just a small body of them. They would break up the cohesion and really shake the morale of the enemy before the real shock tactics of the legionaries came forward to take hold. On they come, the Emperor, his image at least, behind the troops. They wouldn't abandon that standard to save their lives. Now notice all the orders are given in Latin. Index, left, right. Now, the legionaries. You'll notice they're in checkerboard formation. Each man can use his shield as a weapon, as well as defensively. A deadly sword, ready for a single thrust. That's all it took. Centurion getting upset with a soldier there, so they hit him with the vine stick. Quite right too. On they come. If you're a Celt, what can you do? Turn and run? No, your honour would stop you. Go forward? No. You swerve forward and die. Now you get to the rear view as they march again up the hill. Very difficult terrain here. You've got to understand this ground is full of potholes. You can hear the clink of the equipment. Multiply that by 100. And that's what you've got. A monstrous machine clanking its way towards you, the Celts. There's the first of the battle tactics. A simple line advance in checkerboard formation, each man able to fight. Nothing could break through that unless it was a wild charge. And even if they did, there'd be cohorts in reserve behind to contain and destroy the enemy. And round they go again. You'll notice they wave the swords gently upwards to stop them stabbing their comrades. Into the scabbard goes the gladius, and now we're going to see perhaps one of the best known Roman tactics. It's going to look a bit small in the middle there, but I'm sure you'll get the idea. No, it's not a mobile Roman bus shelter, it's the testudo, or tortoise. This formation was used very, very effectively when attacking fortified positions. The Celts were very good at building fortified towns on top of hills. There are many on the south coast, but they were mincemeat to the Roman army because the Romans knew how to attack them. This testudo, or tortoise, is designed to protect engineers that chip away at gates, or get under the walls, or set fire to the wooden palisades. You put shields on top, you put shields in front, and if you've got enough shields, you put them on the sides as well. It's like almost like a caterpillar, an armoured caterpillar. Very, very difficult to do this. On this terrain, they're really going to be struggling. But look at this, methodical. You can be throwing spears, rocks, I don't know, rolled up copies of the Financial Times, anything, and nothing would stop them. The only answer to this is boiling oil, which the British didn't have. However, during the siege of Jerusalem, many Roman soldiers came to a grisly end when boiling hot oil was poured over their heads. Very difficult to do, very limited gearing.
I've testudinous discarded.
That was difficult to do, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome doing. So now we're going to show you what an assault would be like. And I'm in the way. Oh dear. Once again, you'll notice the steady marching. Very few armies in history have actually marched in step, funnily enough. After the Romans left and the Roman Empire fell, no one marched in step right the way up to the Renaissance and beyond, the English Civil War. A gap of nearly 1,000 years when armies didn't march in step, because they'd lost the concept of discipline as the Romans knew it. Frighten the hell out of any dispirited Celts. This could be the final assault, a major battle, or the start of a brief skirmish to disperse a few stupid tribesmen who won't get out of the way. On they come. Drill, method, tactics, determination, iron discipline. A charge! Now, if you were a Celt, would you stand there? No, you wouldn't. You'd be on phone to change a library book, wouldn't you? Let's face it.
To my right, as I face forward, is a ballista. In the centre is a catapulta. And to my left, with the vertical arm sticking straight up to the sky, is an onager. The weapons on the outside, the ballista and the onager, are stone throwers. And the weapon in the centre, the catapulta, shoots large arrows. Now these weapons would have been used in sieges, but also in battles. Each legion would have 60 of the catapulta, and these could be carried into battle very easily, either by hand or mounted on carts, and could be used to put down a field of fire, which can outrange a slingshot or a bow and arrow, and basically, particularly in Britain, could outrange anything which the Celts could use against it. So the Romans could be killing people whilst out of range of the Celts. The ballista's going to shoot first, and there goes a stone high into the air, smack down onto a body of troops, or perhaps over the walls of a city or fortification. Now the catapulta, smack in the head, and thirdly the onager, another stone thrower, which once again can hurl the ball way up into the air and then down onto troops or over a wall.
And there we go, ladies and gentlemen, Roman artillery. Obviously they didn't have the weapons fully tensioned. The range is much longer, but we didn't want to hit anybody. Quite deadly, and as I said, the tribesmen had absolutely nothing to combat it. And so the Romans would use this by bombarding their towns, or more cunningly in battle to launch them, goad them into a premature, wild attack against their formed battle lines, which always ended in disaster for the Celts, well, usually anyway. That ladies and gentlemen, is the display by the Ermine Street Guard, and I'll hand you back to the Centurion briefly.
No, I want to speak to you. You'll just have to give us time to get this stuff moved over. I should start marching the other lot in as we go up the side. Alright, so we'll just give the salute to the
Tribute to the Emperor Vespasianus. You can see the Emperor in front of them. Away! 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 Ladies and gentlemen, the Army Street Guard!